This story was written by Kus Moagi from Luca Rustenberg. Part 1. Women in Uniform, Cultist and Ritualist. In Rustenberg, there was one of the biggest hospitals built a long time ago. It was widely known as George Hospital. Many patients were admitted there for healthcare assistance. People were once happy about the professional services. The service was unique and quick, and there were many employees working as health facilitators. Everything seemed normal, even excellent. But not everything that looks good on the outside is clean on the inside. One day, a post was released for new female nurses. Shortly after, 2 nurses from Mpumalanga were employed. From that time, something began to shift. It was not something that could be seen easily, but it could be felt. Darkness slowly covered the hospital. Strange things began to happen, and patients were the first to suffer. Many started experiencing spiritual attacks at night. Some would scream for help, crying out in fear, but the nurses would dismiss it, saying maybe the patients were suffering from mental problems. The screams would echo through the corridors, then suddenly stop. More patients started losing their lives, especially during the night and early hours of the morning. No one questioned it deeply, or maybe they were too afraid to. There was a nurse named Susan working at the same hospital. She was committed to her work and took her responsibilities seriously. One night, during her shift, she went to do her routine rounds in the wards. As she walked through the corridor, something unusual caught her eye. She saw a figure, a tall black man with 3 heads. She immediately panicked, her breathing becoming heavy and uncontrollable. The figure was coming from another ward, and behind it, it was holding a baby. With it were 3 women in nurse uniforms. Susan quickly hid herself against the wall, trying not to be seen. Her heart was beating fast. As she gathered courage and looked again, she realized something disturbing. The women looked like her colleagues. Confused and shaken, she slowly walked toward the ward they had just come out of. Inside, she found a baby struggling to breathe. Her mind raced. The image of the 3-headed figure holding a baby would not leave her thoughts. She stood there, frozen between fear and disbelief. Later, the baby died. Susan tried to explain what she had seen to one of her colleagues. The response came quickly and coldly. She must not talk about that in public or with other staff, or people would be angry with her. The warning was not just advice. It was a threat. The next day, Susan decided to confront a senior official at the hospital. She explained everything carefully, hoping someone would listen. But instead, she was told to stop talking about such things and to focus on her work. She was told she was disturbing patients and creating unnecessary fear. Susan walked away frustrated and alone. Patients continued to lose their lives in increasing numbers at George Hospital. The truth remained hidden behind professionalism and routine. There was a group of women in uniform, cultist and ritualist, working night shifts, sacrificing the souls of patients. Many survivors, after being discharged, would share strange experiences with their families. They spoke about things they saw at night, but their stories were dismissed as imagination or ghosts. Inside the hospital, the fear was real. Patients reported seeing babies crawling alone in corridors. Wheelchairs moved by themselves. Some claimed to see other patients walking at night, but not touching the floor. These experiences left deep trauma. Still, no one connected the truth. This group of cultist women was not working alone. They were connected to high-profile, successful businessmen in Rustenberg. Power, money, and influence protected them. The hospital continued operating as normal. One night, while Susan was off duty and asleep,
She had a vision. She saw an old man standing on a mountain, calling her name. She walked toward him. The man spoke calmly and revealed to her the existence of the cultist group in the hospital and their mission. He told her to keep fasting and praying, and more would be revealed. Susan woke up in shock. From that moment, she began to observe everything carefully at the hospital while continuing in prayer and fasting.
Part 2. Gorge Hospital in Rustenburg. Written by Kus Moagi from Luca Rustenburg. One day, a nurse approached Susan and asked for help carrying boxes of files to a storeroom. They walked together, talking and laughing. Susan did not suspect anything. The storeroom was cold and quiet. The other nurse asked Susan to come behind the shelves. There, in the darkness, stood a man. Susan froze. As she looked closer, his face appeared unnatural, dark, as if covered in a substance with no eyes at all. Fear overwhelmed her, and she fell to the ground, shaking. The nurse stood beside her calmly. She began explaining everything, telling Susan to join their cultist group. She promised her a better life, money, and protection. She told her not to worry about the patients who were dying. They were not their family members. All that was needed was their souls in exchange for power and wealth. Susan trembled in fear. Suddenly, a security guard entered the storeroom to fetch something. The dark figure disappeared instantly. Susan stood up slowly, still shaking, holding on to the shelves. The two nurses left the storeroom without speaking. The silence between them was heavy. Inside her heart, Susan prayed. She never stopped praying, but the situation grew worse. People continued losing their lives, even those admitted with minor conditions. The hospital remained a place of hidden darkness, masked by routine and professionalism. No one knew the full story. Susan began to face hostility from her own colleagues. She became isolated. She struggled to concentrate at work. At night, she would hear voices, spirits crying, seeking help. Still, she continued fighting, alone. She received no support, not from colleagues, not from seniors, not from anyone. One day, she went away for a conference workshop. When she returned, she suddenly became very ill. She was admitted to a private facility for the weekend. In the early hours of Monday morning, Susan lost her life due to suspected food poisoning. It was a painful loss for her family, but no one knew the truth. She had become a silent hero, entering a spiritual warfare at her workplace. Even though she lost her life, she never stopped standing for what she believed was right. The hospital continued operating. Patients continued arriving. Nurses continued working. Smiles continued at reception desks. But behind the walls of Gorge Hospital in Rustenburg, something remained hidden. Something untouched. Something undefeated. The kingdom of darkness was still ruling. And the story was never told. This story was written by Kus Moagi from Luca Rustenburg.